Mr. President, as the distinguished presiding officer knows from all his involvement in the negotiations that have been going on, we do have an emergency security supplemental issue before us, and so I'm speaking now to urge that the Senate will take up and pass H.R. 3237, which is the Emergency Security Supplemental Appropriations Act of 2021, which the House sent over. And we add a Leahy-Shelby substitute amendment. And let me describe a little bit for my colleagues what the Leahy-Shelby substitute amendment is. It's a result of bipartisan compromise between myself and Vice Chairman Shelby. We've been working on this for weeks, weekends. Our staff have been working late into the night. And I want to thank Senator Shelby both for his hard work and his friendship. This $2.1 billion package is designed to address the aftermath of the violent insurrection that took place on January 6th, designed to heal the remaining scars of the COVID pandemic on the Capitol complex, and provide the resources we need to ensure the safety of our Afghan partners as we include our mission in that country. Let me tell you why there is urgency in this, Mr. President. If we don't act, then the Capitol Police will deplete salaries funding in literally a matter of weeks. The National Guard all over the country will be forced to cancel needed training to carry on their mission at home and abroad. And we all remember going out speaking to members of the National Guard from most of our states who are here to help with the security of the Capitol in January. So if we did nothing, that'd be a sort of a security crisis entirely of our own making in what it would do to the Capitol Police and what it would do to our National Guard. But by acting, we prevent that crisis. We provide the Capitol Police with $70.7 million in resources for overtime pay, retention bonuses, mental health services, and new equipment and training. Let me tell you why this is necessary. Since January 6th, 73 officers have left the Capitol Police. That's not sustainable. We have to make a strong statement of support for those officers who defended this building and all it stands for on that terrible day. And this week, the nation is hearing the testimony of the officers who fought the violent insurrectionist mob on that day, and their trauma is real. Anybody watching their testimony knows it cannot be brushed aside. We also provide $521 million to fully fund the cost of the National Guard deployment to Capitol Hill. From around the country, including my own state of Vermont, the women and men of the National Guard responded without hesitation to our call for help. We shouldn't hesitate to reimburse those costs. I remember during daylight hours and also late at night, going around thanking members of the National Guard, not just from my state, but from all the other states, for what they were doing. But I think it takes a little bit more than just a thank you. We basically told them we'll pay for this. Well, now we will. But that's not all we need to do. We need to secure the Capitol complex. On January 6th, the shattered windows, the doors were broadcast to the world, laying bare that our seat of democracy is not some impenetrable fortress. You can't just replace the windows, fix the doors, and say, okay, everything's fixed. We need to secure the entire complex, including the office buildings where thousands of public servants work and countless constituents visit. So our bill provides $300 million to harden accessible windows and doors to the Capitol building and the Senate and House office buildings, and to install new security cameras around the complex. But our bill also fulfills our responsibility to support the dedicated public servants who worked overtime, way overtime, to clean up the mess left by a violent mob and diligently worked to ensure our safety during the darkest hours of the pandemic. We must support those who supported us. That's not just a political or economic responsibility, that's a moral responsibility. That means paying for the costs we've incurred protecting staff and members, the entire Capitol community from COVID, including cleaning costs and personal protective equipment, none of which has been paid for. Until now, we've covered the cost by robbing Peter to pay Paul. That's unsustainable. So our bill addresses this by providing $42.1 million to reimburse the cost of cleaning, personal protective equipment, telework equipment, and the salaries of employees and contractors who would have been laid off in the height of the pandemic. And finally, in the Leahy-Shelby legislation, we stand with the brave Afghans who supported our mission through 2 decades of war. By now, we've all seen the gruesome reports of men and women being summarily executed in the street, sometimes in front of their families. Why? Because they had supported us. And that slaughter is only going to escalate. We have to provide resources for additional special immigrant visas, SIVs, for translators and other Afghans who worked with Americans over the past 2 decades, as well as for additional humanitarian relief to Afghan refugees. So our bill does just that. It provides $1.125 billion to fulfill our commitment to those brave Afghans. Let me tell you what the funds will do. They'll support emergency transportation, housing, other essential services to our Afghan partners coming to the U.S. under special immigrant visas, and humanitarian aid for the inevitable flood of Afghans fleeing to neighboring countries. The United Nations has estimated that could swell to 500,000 refugees in just the next few months. We've also increased the number of Afghan special immigrant visas by 8,000. We've made improvements to strengthen the program, expand the reach of its protections. The reason we have this in the Leahy-Shelby bill is that there is bipartisan understanding that this is an urgent need. And we have, as the United States of America, we have a moral responsibility to address it immediately. Now, some have said we should just do the bare minimum. Some will say, let's take care of the most pressing needs now and look and work on this maybe later on, maybe. But I've served in the United States Senate long enough to know that a promise to do something later is no promise at all. I cannot accept a piecemeal approach to the urgent security needs facing our nation. They're facing us today, not sometime we may think about it a few months or years from now. Now, Vice Chairman Shelby has a proven track record of reaching bipartisan compromise. And I would note that this agreement does not include everything I want. I'm sure it includes some items that he would have preferred not to be included. But it's a strong bipartisan bill. We've come together to give the best piece of legislation possible for the United States Senate. A pandemic happened, a violent insurrection happened, and the president announced the withdrawal of American troops from Afghanistan. The needs are urgent. We must address them now. So I'm urging all senators to not only support the bill, but actually to pass the bill today, because it still has to go back to the House of Representatives this week. There's no time. There's no time left. It's a good piece of legislation. It's a necessary piece of legislation. And some would say, at least on the Afghan part, inevitable. Both President Trump and President Biden said they wanted to withdraw our troops this year. Well, they are withdrawing. Now we've got to fulfill our responsibility.